everybody, how's it going? IntoWeapons back again with you. Wanted to do a quick video on the LED tail lights of my Lincoln MKZ. As some of you may remember, I recently had done a video on the conversion of those lights right here, the set of 4 of them from the original factory filament bulbs to LED conversion, or LED bulbs I should say. And essentially what that is comprised of is 4 194 T10 or wedge style bulbs, which are very easy to find and very easy to replace. These particular ones that I had used in the original video were very cheap ones. They came in bulk and they ran, pennies essentially for each of them, and they do have a tendency to fail over time. For instance, this particular one here, the end panel is burned out as well as the right hand panel, and I'll zoom in there a little bit shortly there for you, but you can tell when they're getting kind of towards the end of their life, the panels actually are comprised of a number of different dots, and those dots will start failing, and you'll be able to make out the panel itself a lot less visibly than what it was when you first put it in, and eventually the panel will fail completely and you'll just have a dead black spot, which it has 4 along each edge and then 1 on the top, so it's not horrible, and they do last, like I said, about 6 months, sometimes up to a year, depending on the circumstance that you're using them within the automotive conversion. But in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I was sent some of these really nice JDM ASTAR 194 T10 wedge style bulbs, and these are actually available in a number of different colors, white obviously, but also in this case red. They sent me the red one, so I'm able to do the replacements of these to the ones that they sent here on my tail lights, which is really cool. And these are really nice panels, guys. These are a little bit more expensive obviously than what I'm putting in here originally, which are these really cheap ones, and I have an example of that here for you. There you go, and you can see the difference in quality. Obviously these have a lot of plastic on it, and they're not, very well put together. The prongs are sticking out, whereas these from JDM ASTAR have a lot of thought and design. They're overbuilt. You can see the prongs on them are much thicker, more durable. There's some metal on there, some reflectors. There's a tremendous amount more of LED panels on there, which are probably much higher quality, which is going to provide a less chance of it failing along the lines there, especially in these circumstances here of the exterior of the car. Now they are intended for indoor use or interior use only, so you don't want to put them in an adverse situation where you're going to get a lot of water or a lot of heat from perhaps another circumstance involved that you might be using, for instance, the low beams or high beams on your car. So if you have daytime running lamps that run around there that use these 194s, which I do, fortunately my bulbs are far enough away, but you don't want to really get them close to it too hot of a situation. But what we'll do is we'll zoom in here for you on this dead panel for this LED. Like I mentioned, this particular one is no good anymore, and you'll notice that we have some light coming off the top and the bottom. Let's see if I can point that out for you on the camera here, but you can see kind of light towards the top and the bottom, but you'll notice the end panel right there where my finger is completely burnt out, as well as the panel to the right there is completely burnt out. So the amount of luminosity that this LED bulb is putting out in comparison to what it should be is much lower, and the ones surrounding it are not doing much better either, and I'm not sure you'll be able to make out the difference there on the camera, but you'll be able to maybe see that the panels are obviously much dimmer than what they should be, but the number of dots that are illuminated on each of those panels is quite less, so you're actually able to sometimes make out each individual dot, whereas when they're brand new out of the package, you really shouldn't be able to make out anything on that panel except for a red light, and maybe you can see that there, guys, and I'll put my finger there in a moment here, see if we can get this to focus in for you. Hopefully it'll stay in the frame for me. But we're looking at, let's see here on the camera, this panel right there, and you'll notice that we have 2 dots, but there's some exposed LED panel there which is not bright, and those are actually dead spots on that LED panel, and you're able to actually make out the circuitry, which is not how it's supposed to look. So that just gives you an example of what you can achieve with cheap LED bulbs and some of the failure rates that you'll have there. I'm really excited to use the JDM ASTAR 194 T10 wedges. We're going to go ahead and pop those into the right hand side where some of the bulbs are also burnt out, but it'll give you a comparison perhaps of at least the left hand side compared to the right hand side before we do the conversion to all of it. Okay guys, so I got the right hand side replaced, and I am blown away by the difference between the 2 styles, or at least the 2 variations of 194 T10 wedge style bulbs. The cheap Chinese ones put off a fraction of the light compared to the JDM ASTAR, and those JDM ASTARs are some of the brightest LEDs I've ever seen. So what we'll do is, before I go ahead and give you a closer up view of the JDM ASTARs by themselves, hopefully you can kind of make out the LED patterns and how it's lighting up. In a closer view with a more detailed portion of it, but then we'll go ahead and I'll show you how easy it is to replace these with the removal of the back trunk paneling with the clips that hold it in. A simple tool that I've made to do that, and then we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and replace the one on the left hand side off camera, so I don't waste any of your time there with it. But to give you an example of the difference between the two, again, on the left hand side we had the cheap Chinese ones, and on the right hand side we had the JDM ASTAR ones. We'll go ahead and hit the unlock button here, and you can see probably immediately the difference between the two. The one on the right hand side being very much brighter, a lot brighter compared to the one on the left hand side, be it that the left hand side does have some LEDs in there that are a little bit older, and they do have some panelings that are failing. To tell you the truth, I don't really see a tremendous difference between that and the factory new ones when I put them in there. There may be maybe a 10% improvement when those actually work, but the one on the right hand side, the JDM ASTAR, are extremely bright. Again, I've never seen really LEDs that bright. People may even end up thinking it's my brake lights, but the brighter the better, in my opinion. When you're driving down the road, you want people to see you. So as long as my brake lights still work, which is the outer portion of the light assembly, those LEDs light up a bit brighter when I hit the brake system. But maybe as long as that is contrasting to the JDM ASTAR taillights, we should be safe, and that's the biggest thing, is just being safe. So, but what I'll do now is we'll go ahead and jump back into the vehicle, and or I should say, give you a closer view of the JDM ASTAR LED light replacements there, and hopefully get you a little more detailed view of it. Okay, so now we're zoomed in on the JDM ASTAR 194 T10 wedge style LED bulbs, and you can see there that they sit in there very well. There isn't any kind of over travel with the size of the bulb or anything like that. It was a very easy replacement, and I'll show you how the clip I use and how you replace these in a moment here. But I'll go ahead and flick these guys on, so hopefully you can maybe see out the details of the LED. Hopefully not blinded by this guy here. There you go, but you can kind of see how the LED panels light up. And they're all very consistent, good color across all of them. The only thing I would say is they are very bright, especially compared to the crappy Chinese ones over there that are failing, but they may be misinterpreted as brake lights, but I'm assuming as long as they're running 100% of the time, and they are. I did check against the brake lights. The brake lights are about twice as bright once you do hit the brake light itself, so you will be able to tell a difference, or especially when I'm braking, it would be a safe environment. In fact, I could see it being safer as people are going to be noticing it, that's for darn sure. These things are hell's fury, I tell you, as far as brightness and redness. These things are pretty darn cool. I really like them. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys on the left hand side how I actually take out the old ones and put the new ones in using a little do-it-yourself tool that I've made with a fork. Okay, so we're on the inside of the trunk here, and on the inside you'll have that kind of felt liner that most cars have, and most manufacturers use the kind of this compressed clip that you'll see here. It does have kind of a plastic shelving, kind of screw type way of sitting inside there, and it kind of just pushes itself in. These clips have been mutilated pretty good. I've taken them out and put them back in probably 15 times since I've started playing around with LEDs. So these clips are in pretty bad shape. They can be reused as long as you have a pretty good tool to take it out without doing too much damage. And again, I made a do-it-yourself tool because I don't have my tools on me that they're real clips that I use, but are clip pullers. But this is just a common fork that you'll find, obviously. And what I do is I kind of pull with the pliers the middle one to the outside and the other side to the outside. That way you have a higher or a larger opening in the top here, and I just kind of slide the clip down in there, and this will give you kind of the leverage, and you can actually bend it a little bit more if need be. And I think in this particular case I'll probably need it, but this tool, or this fork, actually works pretty well compared to most forks I've used before. But you can go ahead and pull it down, or turn it. You have control of that clip, which is the most important thing for being able to reuse these clips. So what you'll see is I'm just going to go ahead and push underneath there and get that clip up just a little bit in order for me to be able to get my fork down in here underneath it and around the stem of it there. There we go, just like that. You can see it's hanging there. And like I said, what we'll do is we'll kind of pry up a little bit and kind of turn counterclockwise as if you were unscrewing it, and a lot of times that will assist in getting it up at least a little bit further, maybe a 1/4 inch. You'll do less damage to the threading of that clip. because there are inlays that will allow this to come up as you unscrew it. It's just difficult to find manually and very tedious and time consuming as well. So I end up prying them out, pulling them out. So this one I don't, again, if I had a little bit more bend on this, I'd be able to kind of pry it out just by pushing on this, but I can't get far enough down where it's going to give me enough leverage to pull it out. So what I can actually do is then just twist this fork, kind of giving it the same leverage, just in a different, less friendly way, and out she comes. You guys can make that out. But if you don't have the pry tools that the professionals have, this is a great way of doing it. So once you have all the clips off, the next step there is to kind of pull it down. You'll expose the tail light assembly, where you'll generally have a bunch of wires leading to connectors, which the LED sits in, the mounts that then screw into the light assembly itself. That's typically how it's done. If yours is not that way and it's more complicated, I apologize, because that's a bummer. But what we'll do is we'll just do this counterclockwise in order to loosen it, like that, and you'll notice it kind of goes maybe a 25-degree turn there, and then it'll slide itself out. So it is kind of a screw and sit type of assembly there, and then you'll have the socket that the LED bulb sits in. So we're just going to pull that out, and we'll set that down. And I do have the JDM ASTAR replacement there, and it kind of sits in there exactly the same way. And you'll notice there is only a specific way that it can sit in there, except that you do with LEDs have polarization. So you will, if you don't have the LED light up, if it's not a defective one, take it out, flip it around so it's the opposite way, and stick it back in, and a lot of times that will fix your problems. What I'll typically do to test that, so I'm not putting these all back in and then testing it and then having to take it back out again and repeating that process to make sure that they work, is this one, and they're always a little tight, so you just kind of want to push, but you don't want to do any damage to the LED light itself. You kind of want to make sure that you're getting it in there without pushing too hard on those panels. But once you get it in there, what I'll typically do is test it with hitting my key fob, just the unlock or lock button if yours are set up to do that, and you'll notice that that one lights right up there. And then once that clicks off, hopefully you guys will be able to see that, but I don't think it's going to be a while yet, so we'll just continue on. But if you go ahead and see, then we have our assembly, headlight or tail light assembly there. We're just going to stick it back up in there, kind of in the same position we took it out, at that degree of angle, and we're going to twist it back to the locked position. And it does have an O-ring seal around there to prevent humidity and other dust, debris, things like that getting inside there. It's a good idea not to do this on a rainy or humid day. You'll find that moisture will get into your tail light assembly, and you'll have condensation collect on the interior of the lens, which is never a pleasant look. If you live in weather conditions where that could occur, and then perhaps it freezes, you can really have some a film left behind that's not pleasant, and it can dull the coloring and detail of your tail light, so it just makes the car look aged faster than it needs to be. So try to do it on a dry day where the humidity is low, and you're able to avoid those types of things from occurring. I'm guessing some of you are curious on the comparison between these tail lights and the brightness level compared to the brake lights when the brake lights are depressed, or the brakes are pressed in. So I'll go ahead and show you the difference between that here. I'll go ahead and tap on the brakes. You can see the difference between those two. That's brake lights on, brake lights off, brake lights on. So hopefully I can show you that there is a pretty clear difference there. I think as I was looking at it personally, it's about maybe 30 to 40% brighter on the brake light side when the brakes are pushed in than the JDM ASTAR red LEDs that we have in here. So you definitely can tell the brakes, at least in my opinion, were being pressed. If I'm getting a lot of flashing down the roads, people are flashing because I think my brakes are on or something, we'll consider the options at that time, I guess. But ultimately, I really like it. We'll go ahead and show you kind of an overall view of the two together. Alright guys, so that's my review of the JDM ASTAR, the bright CAN bus air free, and that chipset's 3014, and is a replacement for the 194, 168, 2825, the W5W, and the T10 bulbs that you'll find in factory cars. And this one, again, is actually a brilliant red, a very bright red. They run about $13 at the time of making this video for a set of 2 of them, I believe. And that's a pretty good deal considering that they're going to last much longer, if not forever, compared to these Chinese 10 cents or 20 cent ones that I have in here, which suit a certain purpose, but it's nice putting in something that you don't have to worry about ever again. So to give you a kind of an overview of all of them together, then here you go. And again, she's bright. I'm not going to be missed going down the street, that's for sure, which is pretty cool. It's got a really good bright red to it. I'm hoping that the panels will stay lit up for a long time. Of course, I'll put any types of updates of any type of failures or status down there in the description of this video, as well as the links to check it out on Amazon. But if you don't see any status updates down there, just assume that they're still working. So that's typically how I run it. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, as always, I appreciate you watching. And until next time, take her easy.